Hello everyone. This story is about, what if God-like Naruto was able to feel other people's emotions and fall in love with Mei and Anko? Please like, share and subscribe for more. Also check the other fics I've uploaded. Now let's start. The Jonin test had worked spectacularly. Naruto had gained the respect from the Jonin of Konoha, and kept the already present bond with the ANBU. He still needed to prove himself, but he had at least got a chance to do so. He had their respect, now he had to keep it. After the duel was over, Hiruzen and his shadow had retreated back to the Hokage office. Well done, Naruto-kun. Hiruzen complimented the blonde. The Lord Third knew the outcome before the test even began, and he expected nothing less from his top shinobi, but it never hurt to compliment someone who was like family. It was a small, almost unimpressive victory, considering who he was, but Hiruzen wanted Naruto to know that he cared about him more than a tool. He was not like his cold-hearted rival, he loved all of Konoha's citizens, shinobi included. Speaking of the old war hawk. Gigi, I've uncovered the mole. Naruto said suddenly, causing the Hokage to become serious and narrow his eyes. He stayed silent, already knowing that Naruto knew to continue. It was Shimura Danzo. He revealed, causing his grandfatherly figure to sigh. Of course it was. Hiruzen trailed off. If the old Sarutobi was honest, he kind of figured as much. His old rival was granted access, among others, to Naruto's ANBU profile when it became publicly known that the Kamikage existed. The village elders didn't pull stunts like leaking information, so Hiruzen had crossed his former teammates off the list. Nara Shikaku, Konoha's Jonin commander and head of the Nara clan, was too smart to ever cross the god of shinobi, so he too was off the list. Kakashi always had access to anything he wanted about Naruto, unless it was classified as Hokage's eyes only, but he was practically the boy's older brother, so he was never even on the list. Hyuga was in the same boat with Kakashi. She'd never purposefully sabotage his ANBU career. Her lover, Hayate, would have been discovered before the incident even happened if he was the mole, being around the Uzumaki so much. Hyuga Hayashi knew Naruto was the bringer of hope, but he respected the boy more than any other ninja in the village for what he had done for his daughter. So Hiruzen highly doubted that it was the Hyuga clan head. Olive Rohan was exempt as well. If there was someone in his own team that was capable of doing this to him, they would have been sniffed out before they had the chance. But if they were a part of Team Ro, and they did try and sabotage his career, Hiruzen just might have promoted the operative. It would take balls of steel to defy their captain. That only really left Danzo. The Foundation's leader was the only man alive who knew enough about Hiruzen's shadow to know that he was the most deadly shinobi alive and still act against him. The thing that ticked the aged Hokage off the most was that the man probably thought that he was doing him a favor. Danzo had, on many occasions, expressed his thoughts on how fear gained respect. If the other villages feared Konoha, they'd be forced to obey. He had successfully created Konoha's own little boogeyman to scare the nations into obedience by leaking the information on Naruto. It was a tactic all of the villages used, but he had acted on his own again, and intentionally, or unintentionally, it didn't really matter, ruined Naruto's life in one way or another. Again. The man just kept digging a bigger grave all the time. Do you wish to take action? Hiruzen continued, somewhat hesitantly. He knew of Naruto's desire to have Sasuke help him take the old man's life, and didn't really have anything against it, but couldn't tell if the blonde could take any more of Danzo's radical moves. No. Naruto replied quickly. Sasuke deserves to help with that scum's end. Naruto smirked, dying at the hands of an Uchiha, such poetic justice was appealing to the Jinchuriki. I can wait for as long as it takes. He continued. This actually works out to my advantage. He chuckled. Hiruzen raised an eyebrow. Oh? Please, do tell. This ought to be good. Danzo just gave me a legitimate excuse to help Sasuke become strong enough to kill him faster. He chuckled again. He's helping me kill him. The irony was almost too much to handle. I guess you have a point. The Sandaime replied. He didn't necessarily disapprove of Naruto's decision to kill his old rival, but that didn't mean he had to enjoy it as much as the boy did. He never judged his shadow, but he didn't always share his interests. It was hard to understand the way a monster thought, after all. If it was anyone else who actually smiled at the thought of killing another Konohanin, Hiruzen would have them evaluated, and then thrown into prison. Naruto, however, was the one exception. He wore the title of monster proudly on his chest, never hiding what he was. There were no secrets between the two either. Hiruzen knew everything the blonde thought and felt. The Lord Third was so confident in the boy that he was already selected to become the acting Hokage if anything ever happened to him. And the fact that his shadow never did anything without the Hokage's permission was also a factor. If Hiruzen told him no, he would not act against his leader. He had absolute control over the Jinchuriki, and it made the Uzumaki respect him even more that he wasn't treated like a slave. He actually had a say in what he did or didn't do. So, what now, Gigi? Naruto asked, eager to know what he was going to be assigned to as a Jonin. Do I get to lead Genin, Chunin, or Jonin now? He had absolutely no idea what he was going to do outside of ANBU. But he decided that he might as well give it a shot and be as optimistic about it as possible. Hiruzen smirked, bringing his pipe up to his mouth. Oh, I have the perfect assignments for you, Naruto-kun. Naruto narrowed his eyes. His Gigi had a distinctive mischievous feeling about him, and the blonde didn't like it one bit. Which is, he asked after the old man didn't reply. You will be given your assignments tomorrow, Jonin Uzumaki. Now leave my office, I have paperwork to get to. Naruto growled at his commander, half playfully, half annoyed, but did as he was told. The Sarutobi was up to something, and Naruto was not looking forward to the answer he would be receiving tomorrow. He could only hope it wasn't totally horrible. Hiruzen chuckled to himself quietly when he knew Naruto was a decent distance away. His assignment wasn't actually all that bad, but he had wanted the boy to think it would be. Let it be known that Sarutobi Hiruzen could still pull one over on the bringer of hope. Naruto was a bit annoyed with his Hokage's sudden tight-lipped attitude. The aged warrior was the only person alive who could keep anything away from him. It only applied to matters that were of minuscule importance, so he never got too worked up about it, but it still got on his nerves a little. When he left the Hokage's office, Naruto had taken up to walking around Konoha's Tea Avenue. While in the ANBU, he had little time to appreciate a lot of the village because of his busy schedule. Now, finally with some downtime, which he considered the Jonin rank as, he was able to check out some of the shops in his home. He had already been to Ichiraka Ramen, the greatest restaurant known to man in his opinion, before he joined the Black Ops, and it was still his favorite, but he wanted to try something different. He had at least been to Shashuya's, and knew of the kind of food they sold there. He had never seen such large plates in his life. The blonde really wanted to go there again and actually eat this time. He'd make Hyuga treat him there next time he did something worth a meal. He was currently heading to a place called Amiguriyama, a sweet shop in the heart of the Tea Avenue. He was told by Uma and Usagi that they sold Konoha's best curry zensai. He had never tried chestnuts and a sweet bean paste soup made from crushed red beans before, but he was eager to try it out. Most children loved sweets and the like, but with his mature mind and knowledge of healthy eating, he had skipped the entire candy phase and went right into the eating for a better self phase. Both Kakashi and Hyuga were always telling him that he needed to act more his age and try out new younger people things. What's more young teen than buying sweets? Amiguriyama was close, and the smells throughout the Tea Avenue were amazing. Nothing smelled bad or bitter, nothing smelled like blood or death, and it was wonderful to get away from it all, he realized. From this day forth, whenever he thought about peaceful times, he would remember this enticing aroma. This is what peace smelt like, if anything. Before he reached the sweet shop, however, he felt them. They were calling out to him, asking for him to come. He smiled. He had hoped he could give them a proper goodbye. They all deserved one. With an unseen gesture, Naruto had told them where to meet him. ANBU code was one of the most useful things he had ever learned, right up there with his and his Hokage's secret chakra burst code. No one had even noticed when he shined in the middle of the street, fading from the Tea Avenue like he was never there. It used to surprise his team, his ability to fade away so inconspicuously, but after working with him for so long they had just chalked it up to something else the boy wonder could do. It only took Naruto 5 minutes to arrive in Training Ground 44, his former ANBU team hot on his heels. The Forest of Death was a regular meeting place for Team Roe, it being so secluded from the village made it the perfect place for privacy and secrecy. Both very important factors in the life of an ANBU. He settled on the forest floor so that his entire team could look at him. He could feel their minds, most of them were not pleased. Nico, Saru, Uma, Rizu, Ushi, Ukami, and Rayon suddenly appeared on the branches above him. Nico and Saru had already come to terms with their captain's retirement, not exactly loving the idea, but accepting it nonetheless. He knew the two operatives, especially Nico, wanted nothing more than for him to stay, but respected the decision of their captain and Hokage. When it came to the ANBU Black Ops, emotions were never something expressed all that much. This meant that the blonde had to do all of the talking, i.e. the mushy mush. Nico, I appreciate your acceptance, and I know that you will be a great captain. Nico's heart skipped a beat, making Naruto smile. Which is why I've recommended you as my successor. He finished happily. His sister was giving off waves of gratitude and respect. Most of the time, when ANBU captains retire, they only announce their successor to the Hokage, letting it be a surprise to their squad. However, in Rohan, Naruto wasn't the only different one. It had been made clear early on in Naruto's command that the entire team hated surprises, so the young Jinchuriki never held his tongue when it came to big, non-classified information. You'll do me proud, I know it. He added before moving on. Saru. Naruto began. You big pervert. He heard the Nara sigh. I think I might even miss you. He chuckled, the only person to laugh at his joke. He had laughed with his team before, but Naruto was a strict captain. When they wore the mask, they were ANBU, nothing more, nothing less. ANBU did not laugh. The blonde, however, was no longer in the Corps, and his mask was no longer a part of him, so he was free to laugh as much as he wanted. Keep supporting your captain with brilliant strategies, and never change. He gave a warm smile. You wouldn't be the same if you didn't hit on every woman you come in contact with. Naruto could have sworn he heard Nico snort. And listen to Nico. She may be a bit bossy, he could feel his Nachon's eyes narrow behind her mask, but she'll keep you alive. He looked at the rest of the ANBU. She'll keep you all alive. Buma, I'll never forget your kindness. He started. Or your willingness to teach me some of the Hyuga's techniques. He really loved his new arsenal of tricks, and it wouldn't have been possible without the horse-masked operative. The promise I made to you still counts. He added, reassuring the woman that he would do what he had sworn. The Hyuga main and branch families would be united as one when he became the Hokage, he'd make sure of that. Once he was done, the entire clan would be freed from their cages, no more imprisoned second-class clansmen. He felt the Hyuga woman's mind, she believed anything and everything that came out of his mouth. He next turned to Rizu, the only other blonde on the team. The young woman was his Genjutsu specialist, and a Yamanaka, to boot. Rizu, he almost huffed. Try and cool it with all the fooling around with men. He really didn't like how dirty the woman's mind could be. When he had joined Rohan, he was almost victim to the man-eater, until Yugao scared her something fierce. That was one of the times he was glad to have such an annoyingly overprotective sister. There's someone out there who is just waiting to tame you, I'm sure of it. The woman purred underneath her mask at Naruto suggestively before Nico cleared her throat, causing the blonde squirrel-masked operative to stand down. Until that man braves that suicide mission though, Nico will be able to keep you in check. He almost felt bad for the woman, her emotions were that of depression. Now she'd never get laid. Naruto had a strange relationship with Ushi. The ox-masked operative was a giant of a man, and bald, very bald. The Hokage had placed him on Naruto's team to see if the blonde could handle the handful that was Ushi. He had been placed on 6 different teams before he was given to Rohan, and it wasn't because he was so amazing and everyone wanted to share. He only listened to people who were physically stronger than him, and even just by looking at the size of his muscles, one could tell that his brute strength was beyond the human norm. It was a good thing that Naruto was 10 times stronger than any shinobi in Konoha when he wasn't trying, or he might have had trouble as well. Ushi, Nico is in charge from this point on until you are told otherwise by the Hokage, is that clear? He commanded. The berserker grunted an affirmation, causing Nico to let out a quiet sigh in relief. She hadn't a clue what she would have done with the tank if she was left to give him orders by herself. Apparently her little brother felt her nervousness and, like always, came to the rescue. Bukami was always a relaxed, calm person, so when he only showed mild irritation at his captain's forced retirement, Naruto knew that it was his way of stating that he was thoroughly pissed. Bukami, you do the title proud, my friend. Bukami was a man of great honor and loyalty, so for his captain to compare him to that of the Honorable Wolf, he was grateful beyond words. He was lucky that his now former leader didn't need such annoying things as words. Keep my sister safe. He added, knowing full well that after him, the wolf-masked man was the strongest of the team. He was the oldest as well, and a skilled swordsman that made Hey8 and Nico a little jealous. Bukami nodded, taking his words like he would any other order the young shinobi would give him, like he was still his captain. The last person Naruto confronted was Rayon. The lion-masked man was the most awkward person the Uzumaki had ever met. He couldn't talk to women at all unless it was Nico, Rizu, or Uma, and only because Naruto had beaten it into him to communicate with them. It was sad at first to the men of the team he couldn't flirt with the wonderful female species until it became blatantly obvious that the brown-haired man was only interested in other men. Naruto didn't judge, but made it clear where his and the other men's interests were. "I hope working under a woman will help you get over your fear of females," he said with a genuine smile. "It was a pleasure working with you." He closed his eyes. He could feel his team's hearts. "It was a pleasure working with all of you," he finally said, opening his eyes to a sight he always loved looking at. The assembled 7ANBU had their right fist on their hearts, and when he opened his eyes, they brought their fist to the sky, Team Ro's personal salute. It conveyed everything their words could not. "We will always respect you, Captain." Naruto let a small, genuine smile cross his face before he too brought his fist to his heart before touching the sky with it. "As I will respect all of you," he whispered. He knew they heard him, and he knew they didn't care if he practically read their minds. He was the bringer of hope, the Kamikage, he was Nezumi Taicho, and he was the only person alive who they trusted fully with their minds. He had their undying loyalty. And they had his. Naruto cleared his throat. "Now," he began in his ANBU voice. "Leave." He smirked. "Go and protect your village." The 7ANBU stood up straight with a stomp of their feet before simultaneously shouting, "Yes, sir." And like that, the members of ANBU Unit Rohan disappeared. Gone to complete the orders of their captain. He'd always be their leader. Naruto had gone back to Amigurumi to try out the curry zensai, and was pleasantly surprised that he actually enjoyed it. He never really ate sweets, but he would definitely come back to try other foods. It was a little awkward for him to walk the streets of Konoha without his mask. It felt like he was 3 years old again, just waiting for someone to approach him. No one ever did, but that was beside the point. He was torn again. On one hand, he was happy to be amongst his people, his village, but on the other, he was nervous around them. He did not wish to be rejected, and he most certainly would not allow anyone to beat him again. He was too far past that to continue. If they had a problem, they'd have to take it up with the Hokage. After Amigurumi, Naruto had gone home to try and figure out what he was missing with his sage dust, but after 2 hours of fruitless meditation he had given up and went to bed early. He had nothing else to do, and he was eager to learn the details of his newest assignment. The next day saw him with a few familiar faces in the Hokage's office. Hiruzen had summoned them here for some unknown reason, and Naruto could almost taste the awkwardness in the room. He had hoped that the Jonin he fought weren't bitter about their loss, but it seemed like that would be the case. "Now that you're all here," the Lord Third began, "I can debrief you on what I am assigning to Jonin Uzumaki Naruto," said Blonde, raised an eyebrow. He could faintly feel his Gigi's playfulness towards him, and he had the odd sensation that he had been played somehow. "Lord Hokage, why do we have to be present for Naruto-san's assignment?" asked an irritated Asuma. Once again, he was pulled away from time with Kurenai because of his father. "Because his assignment involves the 4 of you," the older Sarutobi replied. "As you all know, there will be new Genin teams formed, and the 4 of you already know who will be assigned to you." Seeing the understanding nods from his shinobi, Hiruzen continued. "All of you have led or have been in teams with Genin, Chunin, and Jonin before. You know how to work with lower-ranked ninja, and how you're supposed to guide them." The Hokage turned to Naruto. Naruto-kun, however, has been in the ANBU Black Ops since he was 4, and has absolutely no experience with lower-ranked shinobi. Naruto nodded. "So I've decided to attach him to you 4. He will rotate between your teams and learn how to properly work with Genin, Chunin, and Jonin." Everyone besides Naruto and Kakashi were surprised. The boy had destroyed them in the duel yesterday, and now the Hokage was saying that he needed to learn from them? All 4 Jonin turned to the blonde when he cleared his throat. "I look forward to learning many great things from all of my senpais," he said politely, and gave them all a respectful bow. Kakashi was the first to reply. "I can't wait to work with you again, Kohai," he said with a nice smile. "Just like old times," he finished, rubbing the top of Naruto's head, gaining a small laugh and smile from his little brother. "Yes, senpai. Naruto said. I can't wait. He was genuinely happy to once again be under the copy Nin. He may not be as strong as him, but Kakashi still had full authority over him. Hatake Kakashi was the Kamikaze's captain, and he always would be. The lazy pervert had a godlike 15-year-old at his beck and call. Kurenai began. I look forward to it as well, Naruto-san. It took her a moment to process that she was going to help train the bringer of hope, but she finally snapped out of her daze and spoke up. She received a smile and a nod from the boy, which strengthened Hyuga's claims that her brother was a very humble and kind boy when he wanted to be. Respectful to his subordinates, and terrifying to his enemies. It really hurt the Genjutsu mistress's head when she thought about how complex the boy was. Asuma sighed, but finally relented. I don't know what I could possibly give you. The younger Sarutobi began. But I'll try my best to help as well. Naruto could tell that even though he was a little bothered by it, he was truly going to do his best for a fellow Konohanin. That alone earned him the respect of the Kamikage. Thank you, Asuma-san. Was all that Naruto said to the chain-smoking Jonin. Yash! Yelled the green-clad ninja with a bowl cut. I will help brighten your flames of youth, Naruto-san. Naruto smiled at Guy's antics. He would have a fun time with the taijutsu specialist, that he was absolutely certain. I can't wait, Guy-san. Naruto said with equal gusto. Kakashi shook his head and leaned in real close to his rival. If you put any kind of spandex on my kohai, I'll accident you. The silver-haired man said, deathly serious. Understood? He asked, daring the man to say anything but what he wanted to hear. Guy gulped. I promise, no spandex. Kakashi didn't move a muscle for a good 10 seconds for good measure. After the 10 seconds were over, he gave the man a nice smile like he hadn't just threatened him and nodded. Glad to hear it. He said before pulling away from his friend of many years. Hiruzen chuckled. Why were all of his jonin so strange? Was he like that too when he was young? No, I was normal, am normal. He thought to himself smugly. He raised his head to speak with his shinobi. Now that you all know, you are dismissed. He stated as he picked up his pen to get started on his mountain of paperwork. One by one, the jonin walked out of the Hokage's office. When they were down the stairs, the four older shinobi turned to face their newest jonin in arms. How's lunch with your new subordinates sound, Kohai? Kakashi asked, reaching into his back waist pouch to pull out his porn. Guy's buying. He added quickly. Guy held his fist to the air. Damn the gods for making you so cool and hip, Kakashi. The blue beast roared. Apparently, Kakashi had won their last little competition, and that meant that Guy had to pay for the lunch. Naruto shrugged. Sounds good. I was just going to go home and train for the rest of the day, but lunch sounds fine. He smiled when he felt his senpai's mind. Ichiraku's it is. The copynin stated, getting a smile from not only the blonde, but Kurenai as well. Not many people knew that the Genjutsu specialist liked Ichiraku's ramen as much as he did, but like everyone else, she couldn't hide it from Naruto. He smirked. Yeah, he'd get along just fine with these people. Week 1 Mado Guy. It was the day of the Genin team announcement, and all of the young, freshly minted shinobi were excited to meet their Jonin sensei. Most of the year's academy graduates were from the clans of Konoha, and most of them were the heirs and heiresses of said clans. It looked like a good crop this year, and Naruto was almost as excited as the Genin. Since he could remember, he loved to learn new things. His innate ability to feel every living thing around him made him an extremely curious person, so when he had the chance to learn something new, he always jumped for it. Being attached to 4 different Jonin to observe their teaching methods would most definitely teach him new and different things. What those things were, he had no idea, and he really didn't care. As long as it helped him in his crucible to gain the strength to keep his village safe, he'd learn them. The rotation schedule was decided when they had lunch at Ichiraku's. Since Kakashi, Asuma, and Kurenai would be receiving new teams, they needed to have a few private sessions before they could introduce Naruto into the mix. And having the bringer of hope around to observe their Genin test would make the green Genin so nervous they wouldn't have a fair chance to prove themselves. So, Guy had volunteered to take the first shift. Since he had been with his team for an entire year already, the transition would be smoother. After Guy, he'd move on to Asuma, and then to Kakashi, and Kurenai would be the last. He'd only spend 2 weeks with each Jonin, but that was more than enough for Naruto. He could have observed them for only a day and be able to replace them, and no one would even know, but he wasn't going to argue with spending more time with them. They were starting to become his friends, and Naruto wanted everyone in Konoha to see him like that, friendly. He was a monster, but meant no harm to his birthplace whatsoever. Naruto really wanted to watch the genin meet their new instructors, but he had somewhere else to be. Training Ground 9 was Team Guy's regular meeting place. It had many trees, which helped every member of the team out in one way or another. When Naruto had arrived, he was aware that he was the last one to show up. He knew for a fact he was on time, so he chalked it up to the rest of them being early. He would soon find out that his guess was true. Guy caught Naruto's arrival in the corner of his eye, and ordered everyone to stop whatever they were doing. The three genin assembled around their sensei just in time to see Naruto heading right for them. "Who's that, sensei?" A girl with her hair up in two buns asked. "A spy?" a boy with long black hair asked in an accusing voice. Naruto gave Guy a face that said "help me out here," and was relieved when he was saved. "No, Niji-kun," Guy began, "he is a friend of mine." He brought his thumb up to point at the blonde who had arrived. "This, my youthful students, is Uzumaki Naruto," he said in a grandiose voice. The three genin looked at him like he was wearing a green, skin-tight spandex suit. Clearly confused at the over-the-top introduction. Guy shook his head. "Ah, you wouldn't know him by his real name yet, would you?" he asked rhetorically. "I apologize." He started again. "This shinobi is the bringer of hope. Konoha's Kamikage," Guy shouted as he fist-pumped into the heavens. For what felt like an eternity, Lee, Tenten, and Niji just stood there, frozen in shock and awe, before Tenten shook from her surprised state of mind and entered one of non-belief. "Sure, Guy-sensei," the aspiring weapons specialist said in a sarcastic tone. "And I'm Tsunadeheim of the Sannin." Naruto smiled and reached out his hand to shake the kunoichis. "Your sensei is not lying, Kunoichi-san," he began. "I was given the moniker Bringer of Hope by Mizuno Kuni," he stated. "And Kamikage just kind of snuck up on me. Lord Hokage refers to me as his shadow, and one of his monikers is the god of shinobi, so the other ANBU put two and two together and, well, you know the rest," he said with a genuine smile. He knew the girl still didn't believe him, but he was going to try and make a good impression nonetheless. "Guy-sensei, is he really the Kamikage?" the guy look-alike asked in excitement. Naruto now knew why his captain threatened the jonin if green spandex came anywhere near him. Apparently, the man liked to have mini-me's. "Yes, Lee-kun," Guy replied with just as much excitement. "He is." The obvious Hyuga stepped closer to the blonde. "Uzumaki-san, was it?" he asked, getting a nod from Naruto. "It is an honor to meet you." He reached out and grabbed the hand offered to Tenten. "I am Hyuga Niji," he finished as he shook the legend's hand firmly. "Nice to meet you too, Niji-san," he replied. "And you can call me Naruto, if you want," he added, wanting to establish a less formal bond between a possible future teammate. The green beast of Konoha was the next to speak. "Yash. I'm Rock Lee, and I'm going to be the best taijutsu specialist the world has ever seen," he yelled with confidence. Naruto could feel the boy's determination and smiled. He was going to complete his goal or die trying. "The will of fire burns strong within you, Lee-san," he replied. "I'm honored that I can witness your rise to the top." Naruto was a little thrown off when the green-clad boy took out a little pad and pencil from seemingly nowhere and began to write enthusiastically. But once he felt that it was normal behavior from the others, he shrugged it off. "Wait," the kunoichi said hesitantly. "You're actually the bringer of hope?" she asked. Naruto nodded and offered her his hand again. "Yeah, but the name's Naruto." "It's nice to meet you." He kept his happy smile the entire time he spoke, causing the girl to blush a little. Whether it was because she thought he was cute, or because of his legendary hero status, no one but Naruto and her would ever know. Her mind was easy to read. It was both. She shyly shook his hand and nodded. "Oh okay, Naruto-san." Her voice was lower and more subdued. "I'm Tenten." She finished, letting go of his hand. "Naruto-san here will be attached to Team Guy for a couple of weeks," Guy announced, getting his three students to widen their eyes in shock. "He will be observing our regular training routines and how I lead so that he can start leading his own genin soon. After he finished, he struck a nice guy pose, which confused Naruto greatly. This man was different, that's for sure, but Naruto liked different, it kept things interesting. Why does he have to watch you to know how to lead a team, sensei? Tenten asked. Wasn't the Kamikage an ANBU captain? Naruto decided to answer this one. I've only lead-trained and experienced ANBU operatives, Tenten-san. He explained. I haven't the slightest clue how to properly lead and guide lower-ranked shinobi. If I was given a genin team, I wouldn't know how to teach them. If I had a Chunin cell to lead, I would expect too much from them. Even if I had to lead a Jonin cell, it would be difficult for me. ANBU are specialized for high-risk missions, and because of that, know the proper protocol for anything that may or may not happen if I'm busy with something. Most Jonin are specialized in one or two categories, and don't know everything I and the rest of the ANBU do. That's why Lord Hokage has asked some of the Jonin to teach me how I'm supposed to deal with it all. After the detailed explanation, he received nods from all of the genin. He knew that they now fully understood. Well, what are we waiting for? Guy boomed. We're in the springtime of our youth. No time like the present. Naruto smiled at his enthusiasm and even laughed when it was mirrored by Lee. He was going to have fun with these people. Week 2 Mato Guy. During the first week of observing Guy and his team, Naruto became aware of many things. The first thing he realized was that teaching genin took a whole lot of time. Unlike him, the low-ranking shinobi's learning curve was irritatingly slow. Even the simplest of things took the genin of Team Guy an entire day or two to learn. It was eye-opening, he really was an incredibly fast learner. The second thing he learned was that Rock Lee was probably one of the most inspirational shinobi he knew. The genin was always training in taijutsu, but Naruto had just thought that it was a phase. When he actually felt the boy's chakra system, he had been shocked at how underdeveloped it was. He was told by Guy that Lee aspired to be a taijutsu master because it was the only shinobi art he could use. Naruto had sparred with the green beast a few times already, and to be told that it was all brute strength and plain taijutsu was awe-inspiring. Lee was one of the hardest-working shinobi Naruto had met, and he had only just started his shinobi career a year ago. The boy had the potential to become legendary, and Naruto was going to make sure he was there to see it. Tenten was actually a lot better with shuriken jutsu than Naruto thought she'd be. The young kunoichi used a clever tactic that involved basic fuin jutsu to launch the weapons at her targets. It didn't look like it would be very effective at first glance, but the stubborn genin made it work. Her accuracy was impressive as well, which should have been extremely difficult. Apparently, whenever she couldn't hit her target, she'd just bombard it with everything she had. It was overkill, but effective overkill. He hadn't spent much time with Neji, the Hyuga prodigy was always either training by himself or with his cousin. Naruto didn't know which cousin he meant, what with the Hyuga clan having so many relatives. For all Naruto knew, he could have 10, maybe even 20 cousins. He didn't give it too much thought though. His assignment was to observe the proper way to lead lower-ranked shinobi, and he had done that. During the second week, Naruto had even joined Rock Lee in his morning workouts, which anyone other than Naruto would call extreme. The things he did with the aspiring taijutsu specialist were, for lack of a better word, crazy. Even with the blonde's ANBU-trained body, his muscles ached a little after every session. He had even taken to wearing the same weights Lee had around his legs. They were incredibly useful, and Naruto had gotten used to them after the first day. When he took them off, he'd be even faster than he already was, which pleased the Uzumaki to no end. He had the yellow flash as a father, he needed every bit of help he could get when it came to speed. The entire second week was beneficial to him in many ways. He had gained the wisdom of a teacher who thought that hard work and discipline made greatness, and if his team was anything to go by, Naruto had to agree. Guy's students were top-rate genin, borderline chunin, and it had a lot to do with their sensei. Naruto honestly learned more than how to lead genin during his time attached to Team Guy, though. He had increased his strength, stamina, and speed in just 2 weeks with Guy and his apprentice. Even after he rotated to Asuma, he most likely would keep showing up to their morning training sessions whenever he could. He had made bonds outside of the ANBU, and he held them just as close to his heart as the others. Konoha was slowly accepting him, and he loved her even more for it. The training with Mato Guy had passed by quickly, and Naruto had learned so much from the man. He was almost positive that he worked his genin harder than anyone else, but it had made the 3 shinobi better. The blonde was taught that patience was a key factor when teaching genin. They did not learn as fast as he did, so they warranted more attention, more guidance. Discipline, patience, and a whole lot of hours were required in training the lower-ranked ninja, and Naruto was sure that he'd learn something new and different from his next senpai. Sarutobi Asuma was the Lord Third Hokage's son, and, as expected, was a skilled shinobi. He had made Jonin fairly early in his career, and was even inducted into the 12 Guardians, where he protected the Fire Daimyo with the other top-notch shinobi in Hai no Kuni. Naruto knew that his Jiji and Asuma didn't really get along all that well, and that having someone the man considers a grandson attached to him and his team would annoy him a little. The Uzumaki was just glad that he was actually going to try his best to help him in his quest to becoming a better teacher. Naruto was touched that everyone from Team Guy were upset from him having to leave so soon, even Neji. He had offered a lot of pointers to the entire team, even helping Guy with whatever he could. Lee had benefited the most from the whole thing. He finally had someone who was capable of handling his never-stop personality. With Neji, he would hold back, not wanting to reveal all of his secrets to his rival. With Naruto, he had the perfect training partner. There was no holding back, and Lee was able to test his more lethal moves. Tenten had used him as a target dummy for the 2 weeks they knew each other. She had claimed that he was fast enough that he wouldn't or shouldn't get hurt, and that it would help her reaction time. The blonde had seriously questioned her logic, but played his role nonetheless. If it helped his fellow Konohanin better protect the village, he'd let her stick him a few times, if that's what she needed. The last 2 days, Neji had really taken to Naruto, and even though it took him so long to warm up to him, he was glad the boy opened up. Sparring with a Hyuga genius was always fun, and that's exactly what Neji was, a genius. The young Hyuga had mastered many of the main house's techniques of his clan, even though he was a branch member, Naruto having been told that bit of personal information by Guy. When he saw the genin launch the crippling Hakurokujian show at him during one of their private spars, he was actually surprised. The maneuver was an extremely advanced one, and the Hyuga prodigy did it flawlessly. When Naruto had flared his chakra to the point of visibly being encased in it, and reopening his tenketsu, Neji was shocked into silence. He had just stood there, taken the deadly blows, and looked like nothing had happened afterwards. It kind of scared the genin, but he quickly reassured himself that the Kamikage was as loyal as shinobi get, and after getting to know him, realized he was kind when he wanted to be. Naruto had made it perfectly clear that he was no poster child for kindness or the like, and that he was Konoha's monster, her demon slayer, her sword and shield. He didn't want people to get the wrong idea about him just because he was being friendly with them. The day before his rotation, Guy had approached Naruto, asking if they could speak in private. Naruto was a little hesitant at first, but agreed shortly after, already trusting the man after spending 2 weeks with him. "What is it you'd like to talk about, Guy-san?" the blonde asked politely. He could feel the man's mind, but it was rude to end a conversation that was serious in nature just because you already knew what was going to be said. "Naruto-san," Guy began, "in the 2 weeks you've been assigned to me, I've probably learned more from you than you have from me." The tone and the way the taijutsu specialist spoke to him was something the blonde had never witnessed before. Gone was the goofy, eccentric handsome devil, and in his place stood a serious shinobi of Konoha. "I know that the assignment was to better your teaching skills, but if I didn't know better, I'd think the Lord Hokage sent you here for different reasons." Let it be known the Meido guy was not the complete idiot everyone thought him to be. Naruto gave a small chuckle. "Then it's a good thing you know better," he replied, leaning against the tree he was closest to. Guy had brought him into the forests of Training Ground 9, so said trees were in great numbers. "But let's say you didn't know better, what would you think the Lord Hokage's true intentions were?" "Attaching me to the genin teams, I mean?" He really wanted to see how perceptive his fellow jonin was. "I'd say he's trying to get you access to a certain someone without letting other certain someones know about it." Guy smirked. "And the rest of the genin squads are just a cover, so that the third party doesn't see what's truly going on." That's when Naruto knew that Meido guy was brilliant. Not only was he far more perceptive than most trained ANBU, but he hid it behind a wall of, well, green spandex. The real mystery though, is why it's such a big secret. If Naruto didn't know the man so thoroughly, he would have taken him into the Hokage, where he would face whatever their leader commanded. He did know the man, however, and knew where his loyalties were. Guy was very close with Kakashi, the two were best friends after all, and that meant that the spandex-clad man knew more than most. He knew that Itachi was a member of Team Ro, alongside Naruto, and most likely knew that they were at the very least close. It was common sense that the two youngest members would become friends quickly, being so outnumbered by older, more experienced adults. So, Guy knew that losing him would have been hard for the boy, no matter who he was. He was still human, despite popular belief, and the loss of someone close to you hurts. When he began to think about the odd assignment, he realized that it was strange. Given his close history with Kakashi, all the Lord Third had to do was assign him to that team, and that team only. He'd learn everything he would need with just him. That meant that there was a reason he couldn't just be given to Kakashi, or at least that was what Guy had concluded. Naruto just smiled. The man was a jonin after all. Hiruzen knew that it would have caused trouble if he gave Naruto to Kakashi's team, knowing that Danzo would become suspicious. Naruto knew the truth, and Danzo knew he did. He also knew that Naruto and Itachi were close, meaning that he was less than pleased with the outcome of the Uchiha massacre. If he was suddenly spending all of his time with Itachi's little brother, it would have at least caused Danzo to be cautious. The old war hawk didn't survive this long because he was extremely powerful, he was strong, just not the stuff of legends. He was the most secretive, paranoid, underhanded man the Hokage knew. If he caught even a scent of Naruto's plans for him that involved Sasuke, he'd strike at Naruto before the blonde had a chance to. Something like that would force Naruto's hand, and he would have to kill the root leader. The Uzumaki would not allow him to act on his own with radical action anymore, he could only take so much. Well, that is possible. Naruto said, surprising Guy. It's a shame you'll never know. Guy caught the "you'll" instead of "we," insinuating that he already knew the real reasoning. Naruto felt the man's mood darken a little at that, so he decided to make it perfectly clear to the Jonin. Guy-san, whatever the case may be, I have truly enjoyed studying under you. His smile was genuine. Not only have you taught me new things, but I've made bonds with people near my own age. That's more than I've accomplished in years done in just 2 weeks. He took in a deep breath. As long as I take breath in this world, your students will be safe, this I promise you. I will protect them with my life, like I will protect you, because no matter what else happens, I love my village and her people. His smile turned a little dark. I'm a monster, Guy-san. You'll soon see what I'm capable of. And when you do, you'll know that I can keep my promise to you. He looked right into Guy's eyes, blue meeting brown, and said, and I never go back on my word, that's my ninja way. Guy had originally asked to speak with Naruto to see if his thoughts about the real reason he was attached to so many genin teams were true. And then to warn him to never use his students for his own purposes again, no matter how small or innocent it was. But after speaking with him, after hearing what he had to say, for some reason, Guy had lost all hostility towards him. So this is the real bringer of hope, huh? Guy thought as he looked at the teen in front of him. Not 10 seconds later he went straight back to his exuberant self and fist pumped into the air. Yash! Our flames of youth still burn brightly together then, Naruto-kun. Naruto didn't miss the change from the more formal, Santo the personal, kun. It was Guy's way of saying that he believed him, and they were no longer just comrades, but friends as well. Now, before you leave us, we should find Lee-kun and run 50 laps around the entire village, on our hands. The blonde smiled. He had found another person he could count on. He had made another friend. The Lady Fifth Mizukage sighed. She was currently facing a foe that every Kage had to face, no matter which village they were from. Paperwork. The thrice-damned blight against all things holy was really starting to get on the beautiful, auburn-haired woman's nerves. She never knew that being Mizukage meant that she had to sit in a stuffy office for hours upon hours every day, going through annoyingly large amounts of paper that only seemed to increase with each passing moment. Mei had a lot on her mind lately. The source of her mind's restlessness? One Uzumaki Naruto, the boy who she had, unknowingly, come to care for far more than she should have. When he was in Mizuno Kuni, he was only 10, and had managed to do multiple things that were considered close to impossible. He had practically won the civil war by himself shortly after joining her and the other insurgents. He had razed an impregnable prison to the ground with ease, freeing all those held captive. He had let himself be taken to the heart of enemy territory and single-handedly brought down a Kage-level Jinchuriki, without even damaging the hidden village they had started their death match in. He had freed the entire country, and only asked that they became allied with his home. And the most impossible thing he had done while joining the resistance, he had stolen the heart of Terumi Mei. It started out as just curiosity. He had shown incredible strength when he tore into Black Harbor, and if there was something she respected most in people, it was their strength. It was what attracted her, and the blonde ANBU operative had power in bulk. She wasn't an arrogant person, but even she knew that she was extremely beautiful, so when the boy had declined her offer of a little touchy-feely time, she was a little surprised. And if she were honest, he only interested her more. After he had explained to her his reasons, she had understood and moved on to finding other ways to get close to him. When he accepted her offer to lock lips, she was strangely excited. He was incredibly young, a legal adult, yes, but still young, so she didn't understand her eagerness to be more than friends. After everything he had done for her and her people, she had developed even stronger feelings for him, and when he left, she was more disappointed than she thought she'd be. She had become the leader of her nation, and he was the right hand of the leader of his, and not to mention the huge age difference. They could never work, and yet, Mei couldn't stop thinking about him. He was the most famous person in Mizu no Kuni, the bringer of hope, their savior. Even if she wanted to forget about him, her country wouldn't let her. His name was whispered all throughout the village, the island, the country. There were plays about his heroic deeds, there were books about his courageous work in water country, and there were songs sung to the heavens about his godlike gifts. He was what every man aspired to be, and what every woman aspired to be with. Soon after he left, the stories of the Kamikage had made it to Mizu. Suffice to say that he became even more popular, and it was harder for Mei to forget about him. He was special, he was different, and he was out of her reach. Mei sighed again and dropped her pen, taking a break. She reached into her top desk drawer and pulled out a small black book. It was the bingo book Naruto was in, and it held a piece of paper that she didn't absolutely want to burn. Before he left, Naruto wrote her a letter and put it on her bedside table for her to read it when he was gone. She read it every day, like she was right now. Mei. These past weeks were fun for me. I've enjoyed spending what little time we've spent together. To be honest with you, I don't have many people I can be close with. It's almost sad, really. I can count the people I can trust with my heart on one hand. When I came to Mizu, I hadn't planned that I would meet someone like you. I was pleasantly surprised that I did. I know I'm young, and I know that it's ridiculous, but I feel more for you than any other person I've ever met. Trust me when I say that I understand love. I've felt the people around me fall in and out of it plenty of times. It's just the first time I think that I've felt it for myself, through my own eyes, instead of another's. I kind of wish I was older, and that you were born in Konoha, with me. I know that we probably will never be together, but I just want you to know that, if it's okay with you, the very next time I see you, we'll continue what you started the night we first shared a bed together. Even now, writing it down, I can feel you blushing. Good. I hope every time you read this that it makes you blush, so you can remember me. Please. Please don't forget me, Mei. I want a place in your heart forever, even if you find someone else, even if you move on. That's all I ask for, a place to call my own. You will always be in my heart and mind, Mei-chan, and if your country needs me again, say the word, and I'll have my God send his angels to rescue you. I know women like you, powerful women, don't like to be treated like a princess, but that's just too bad. You are my princess. With love. Uzumaki Naruto, your warrior angel. The kid was good, a little too good, at a few things. Firstly, he could make her blush, for years later, without even being there. Every time she read the letter, it made her blush when he secretly promised to continue their sensual encounter. If anyone else had read the letter they wouldn't understand his meaning, or maybe they would, but it was worded vaguely enough that she could deny it, and she was grateful for that. Ao was always going through her things, and if he had seen a letter from someone as young as Naruto talk to her so casually about sex, he'd lecture her about the inappropriate age difference, which would lead her to believing he was calling her old, and then she would have to threaten his life again. She'd rather not have to do that, because it happened all the time already, and she didn't want it to happen when she thought about her angel. She had a lot of suitors, and when she said a lot, she meant a lot. But none of them could make her blush like Naruto could. None of them could make her feel like Naruto made her feel. Secondly, he was able to make her feel like she was the most important woman in the world. The way he spoke, the way he wrote, he was able to speak to her heart and mind like no other was capable of. He had a troubled past, that much she was certain, and the fact that he wasn't a complete psychopath was a miracle. He had asked, specifically for her, to save a place for him to call his own. She was important enough for him to open up to her, and brave enough to ask for her heart, or at least a small part of it. They had only spent no longer than 2 weeks together, yet they already felt so close to one another. She hadn't realized how much she actually cared for him until he was gone for a while, but when she did, she hated it. To have these feelings for someone so young that a lot of people would look down on her for wasn't something she would call fun. To have these feelings for someone from another hidden village would cause people to question her ability to do whatever it took to protect her people. And that wasn't something she wanted to experience. But most of all, to have these feelings for someone who was always so far away from her hurt her every time she thought about him. Thirdly, if anyone else called her their princess, she'd melt their faces off with her yoton. How he was able to actually have her enjoy being called his anything was no small feat. She was a very strong and independent woman, so things that made her sound weak or reliant were things she despised. When he said it though, it gave her this warm, tingly feeling in her stomach. It was absurd, but like everything else about Naruto, it was true. A knock on her door caused her to retreat from her mind. She quickly put the letter back into Naruto's bingo book entry page, and put them both back into her drawer. She took a deep breath to calm her emotions, reverting back to her Mizukage mindset, and said, "Come in." Ao, who had taken the role of her assistant, walked through the doors, a stack of papers in his hands. She internally groaned, it looked like she'd never get out of her office. "Mizukage-sama," the ex-hunter Nin began, "Konoha has sent us a formal invitation to the upcoming Chunin exams." Mei's heart stopped, but her mind went into overdrive. She would be in Konoha. She would be in Konoha for a decent amount of time. She would be in Konoha with him. She briefly wondered if he was old enough now. Mei had an absolutely hungry smirk on her face. He did say the very next time. Week 1, Sarutobi Asuma. Naruto's eyes were narrowed, his mind focused. He was in the most difficult battle of his life at this very moment. His opponent was better than him. He was trying, giving it his all, but he just couldn't get the upper hand. He was going to lose, he knew that now. He was giving off the feeling of victory. The fact that he had pushed his opponent this hard made it less bitter. This person had the mind of a god, and Naruto had kept up for this long. It was just too difficult, he didn't stand a chance. "You lose, Naruto," said Blonde Side in defeat. "Damn, that was the most intense shogi match I've ever played," Nara Shikamaru said, falling backwards so that his back was on the patio. "You're the greatest shogi player I've ever played against, besides my old man." Naruto laughed. "Thanks. I never thought that you'd be so good. You have a serious knack for strategy." Naruto was currently at the Nara clan compound, having come home with Shikamaru after he observed Team 10 complete a mission. He had already been with them for a week now, and he had become incredibly close with the lazy genin. Shikamaru's intellect was second to none in his generation. Being able to talk to someone around his age that was able to keep up with him in a stimulating conversation was something that hadn't happened since Itachi left. If the kid wasn't so lazy, he'd say the friendship was perfect, but, like everything and everyone, nothing was perfect. He kind of guessed that it was for the better though, having someone who enjoyed just lying with you and watching the clouds float by was sometimes just what a person needed. And if Choji always brought snacks, Naruto could seriously get used to it. It was such a new and exciting experience to hang out with other kids, doing nothing but talking, and sometimes not even that. He loved hanging out with his Nei-chan, she was his best friend after all, but it was different when they were near his age, and boys. Sometimes you just couldn't talk about things with girls, and Naruto had plenty he wanted to say about the fairer sex. Unfortunately, none of the boys he'd met were into girls all that much yet, for one reason or another. Niji and Rock Lee were so obsessed with training they couldn't bother with the opposite gender. Choji just hadn't hit that point in his life, and Shikamaru thought that they were just too troublesome, and couldn't be bothered with the hassle. Guy and Asuma were out of the question, so that put him right back into his predicament. He had no one to talk to about his feeling towards women. Hyuga would overreact and he'd end up in trouble for no apparent reason, so he was just out of luck. "It's just a game." Shikamaru waved off. "It doesn't account for stress and other variables that come with live combat. And it gets easier the more you play it." "I kind of thought so," Naruto said. "That was a fun first time though," he added, accepting a glass of tea Shikamaru handed him. The young Nara shook his head. "You really are a monster, Naruto," he continued. "If that was your first game, I don't want to see you when you actually know all of the rules." He chuckled. When he asked Naruto if he wanted to play, the blonde had asked for a 5-minute crash course on the game, and then gave him one of his hardest matches he'd ever played. The blonde was born with a mind equal to his, and that was scary if all of the rumors of his godlike power were true. The mind of a god, the power of a god, and the will of a god was the greatest triple threat the young genin had ever heard of. Naruto actually smiled at being called a monster. "And don't you forget it," he said playfully. When Asuma introduced him to Team 10, Shikamaru believed he was the bringer of hope right away. When asked why he was so accepting later on, he answered with, "The way you walk and talk, the way you hold yourself, and the way your eyes are so aware of your surroundings was a dead giveaway." Naruto was impressed with his answer and had concluded that they were somewhat alike. Naruto could guess the intentions of an individual just by feeling them, and Shikamaru could guess an individual's intentions just by calculating it visually. He had found another monster, just a slightly different kind. Choji had believed him the moment Shikamaru did. It was apparent that his team thought highly of his powers of deduction, and trusted him to know what he was talking about. Choji was so gentle and kind that it made Naruto question if he was fit for the shinobi life or not. After spending a few days with him though, he realized that the boy was determined to protect his friends, and that deep down, a slumbering Cho was waiting to spread its wings. Ino was friendly. He wondered if all Yamanaka were so friendly. If she grew up to be anything like Rizu, he'd have to have a serious talk with the clan head when he became Hokage. She was easy to be around though, and he could feel the real her. Underneath, the obvious fangirl was someone who cared about her friends and family, and would protect them with her life if she needed to. And that was good enough for Naruto. "Seriously though, man, you don't need to wait for my dad to get back, you're welcome to come in whenever you want to," the Nara genin said again, trying to convince his new friend. When they had arrived, Naruto had asked if Shikaku was home. When Shikamaru's mother, Yoshino, said that he was out with Inoichi and Choza, and wouldn't be home for at least another hour, he had asked if they could stay outside until he returned. Nara Shikaku was the Jonin commander, and an extremely respected shinobi. Naruto had only spoken to the man a handful of times, but he too was one of the people who respected him. If the man wasn't home, then he wouldn't enter until he returned. The greatest mind since the Lord's second Hokage deserved at least that. Shikamaru had thought it was stupid, but Naruto wouldn't budge. That's when they decided to play shogi. "It's important to me, Shikamaru," Naruto replied. "Your father is a great man, and he deserves to be able to decide if he wants to allow me into his home or not." Naruto knew that Shikaku didn't see him as some comrade-killing demon. But it was a sign of respect that he would give the Nara clan head. If he didn't want a monster in his house, then Naruto would honor his wishes. "Whatever." Shikamaru sighed. He took a drink of his tea before he continued. "What else do you want to do?" he asked, looking at the sky above. Naruto smiled and turned to the street. "It looks like we have company," he said, watching the blonde ponytail swing back and forth as it made its way to them. Even though Ino was prone to obsessive behavior, she was still a Konoha nin, and Naruto wanted to get along with as many as his people as possible. Yamanaka Ino appeared at the front gate of Shikamaru's home. "Oi, Shika," she called out behind the gate. "Let me in. I'm bored, and Sasuke-kun won't talk to me." The mention of Uchiha Sasuke got Naruto's attention. Shikamaru sighed but got up and let his blonde teammate in. When they walked to the patio, Ino was surprised to see Naruto sitting there, and Naruto-kun? "What are you doing here?" she asked, somewhat shyly. The young Yamanaka had already added the kun suffix to his name, the girl already that comfortable with him after only 1 week. Naruto smiled at her. "Shikamaru invited me over." He shrugged. "I had nothing better to do, so I accepted." He really didn't either. After his time with Team Guy, and then the week with Team 10, he still was no closer to finding what his sage dust was missing, and it annoyed him something fierce. "My Nachan is on a mission, and my Aniki is busy with his team, so I might as well hang out with you guys for a little while." He had taken up calling Kakashi Aniki in front of friends. The silver-haired man being the closest thing to an older brother he would ever have. Hayate had gotten closer to him during his 3 weeks of living in his apartment, but it would kinda be strange to call his sister's lover his brother. So he just stayed Hayate. "Oh," she said, "okay then. What are you guys doing?" "I'm bored," she stated again. Naruto smirked. "So, who's this, Sasuke-kun?" He decided to pretend that he didn't know who the Uchiha was, so that he could start a fresh bond with Sasuke when they first met. Ino sighed dreamily. "He's only the cutest boy in the whole world." Naruto finally understood why he had thought that she was a fangirl when they first met. He's so cool and mysterious, she continued, her eyes still shut, and one day, he's going to realize that I'm the one for him. Naruto could see Shikamaru shake his head from his cloud-watching position. Then, Forehead will know her place. She suddenly shouted, her eyes opening, only to narrow, and squeezed her hand into a fist. Apparently Forehead was another girl that ached for Sasuke's affection. Naruto was already proud of his future student, only just a genin and already a lady killer. Well, good luck with that then, I guess. Naruto said. He was about to say something else until he noticed who was arriving. Naruto stood to his feet and walked over to the man he was waiting for. Nara Shikaku walked through the gate to his house, a lazy look on his face. When he saw the bringer of hope, Naruto wasn't surprised that all he received was a raised eyebrow. But he couldn't fool the blonde, even without his empathy, he could read the man just from his eyes. They were the eyes of a tactician, and they were calculating every possibility for the reason the Hokage's famed shadow was in his compound, hanging around his son and his friend's daughter. Naruto brought his head down slightly, the closest thing to a bow anyone but his god would receive from him. Shikaku-san, Shikamaru has invited me into your home. He began, Shikaku not showing the slightest of emotion on the outside. Is it okay for me to be here? He asked, never taking his eyes away from the Nara. Shikaku just stood there for a moment, not saying a word, and then put his hands in his pockets and walked forwards. Sure, why not? He said, acknowledging the other two present with a nod of his head before he entered his home through the main door. Naruto smiled, having felt Shikaku's message clearly. It wasn't a surprise that he knew the chakra burst code he and his Gigi used. The man was a genius after all, and something as simple as decoding a secret language was child's play for him. You're always welcome among the Nara. It would seem that Shikaku respected Naruto as much as Naruto respected him. When the Uzumaki rejoined the Yamanaka and young Nara, Ino giggled. You actually waited for Shikaku-san to get home? She asked, confused why he would do something like that. Naruto gave her a small smile. You'll get it sooner or later. He said cryptically, before following Shikamaru into his house, Ino following close behind. Week 2, Sarutobi Asuma. Naruto was walking home, a satisfied look on his face. He had just had a fantastic meal with Team 10, celebrating a wonderful 2 weeks together. When Naruto joined Team 10 to observe Asuma's teaching methods, he was a little hesitant at first. Asuma wasn't the biggest fan of his, so it was really anyone's guess how productive his 2 weeks with the man would be. Fortunately, Asuma knew how to look past his personal feelings and do the job he was assigned to do, like all shinobi should. It had been an awkward first couple of days, but after Naruto started to join the genin for the exercises, and even help out with their training, Asuma had made the blonde feel more comfortable. Like with Guy, Naruto had learned more than just teaching genin. He had spent 2 weeks with a genius, and had sharpened his mind because of it. He understood how the Nara genin looked at the world, and took what he could from it. He was already an intelligent person, and spending his years with Saru had made him a pretty good strategist, but Shikamaru was definitely in a league not many people could claim to be in. The speed of his thought processing was off the charts, faster than anyone the Uzumaki had ever met before. When he made a plan, there was never just one, but hundreds of them. He would have countermoves for countermoves, and was always prepared for anything. As for teaching genin, like he predicted, he learned a different way of doing it. With Guy, he learned that hard work and determination made greatness, and it did, but that wasn't the only way to achieve it. Asuma had taught him that sometimes, you needed to work to an individual's strengths. Not everyone learned the same way, and it was okay to give the people who needed it more attention on occasion. He also learned that being a little gentle didn't mean that a person couldn't live as a shinobi. Choji was not a violent person, and didn't like to fight at all if he could help it, but after the little talk he had with the Akimichi, he knew he had what it took. Flashback. Naruto had asked to speak with Choji alone after the training session they had that day. When Naruto brought him to the top of the Hokage monument, Choji was a little confused. Naruto-san. Choji started slowly. I don't think we're allowed up here. Naruto could feel the Akimichi's nervousness. Naruto was standing on the head of the Lord Fourth, his father, facing the village he protected with his life. It's fine, Choji. Naruto began. We won't get into any trouble, I promise. Naruto had the second highest clearance in the village, if anyone even tried to tell him to get down he'd laugh in their face. So what do you want to talk about? The genin asked, eating another chip from the bag in his hands. I wanted to tell you a story. Naruto said softly. Choji didn't understand, so Naruto elaborated. I want you to listen to this story, and then I want you to seriously think about what I've said afterwards. Choji still didn't understand, but nodded his head anyways. Sure, Naruto-san. Choji replied politely. Naruto began. This is the story of a monster. He took a deep breath. When he was still just a child, his people beat him. They scorned and shunned him for something he never did. He lived his life stuck in a nightmare, and no matter what he did, he couldn't wake up. He could feel Choji's heart. The genin really was too gentle. He lived like this for the first 6 years of his life, all alone, and stuck in his constant bad dream. Most would think that he would hate these people for what they did to him, but then most people would be wrong. It was quite the opposite actually, because the monster had one thing no one else had. Choji was very interested in this story. Empathy, the ability to feel the emotions of those around you. This monster had the gift of empathy. It said that, once you completely understand someone, you can't help but love them, and this monster had fallen in love with the very people who hurt him, because he could feel their pain. They wept every time they saw him, and even though it wasn't his fault, they treated him like it was. So he decided to never resist them when they wanted to project their anger on him. Because he knew that he was the only person who could take it. Naruto didn't know if the boy was going to tear up or not, but it looked like he would any moment now. It all changed though, when he chose to become what everyone called him. Naruto gave the village a small smile. He chose to be a monster, to take another's life. This person was a foul, tainted demon, who was taking what did not belong to him. A little girl, with a heart as pure and gentle as yours. He was going to sentence this child to a life of servitude. He chose to save the innocent, and slay the demon. His smile darkened. With the demon's death, the monster had felt awake. He was free from his nightmare, and had finally understood what he was born to do. He finally turned his gaze from the view of the village to look right into Choji's eyes. The monster was born to protect heaven. He was charged by God to keep the shadows of hell from the light of heaven, and that meant that he had to kill even more. Naruto took in another deep breath. It's hard for those who can feel compassion even for their enemies to take a life. Now, Choji understood. But for the sake of peace, we shinobi have to sacrifice what we believe to be right or wrong, so that the civilians, the lifeblood of our home, can afford to keep the pureness of their hearts. Choji was seriously considering his words, and that was enough for Naruto. Choji, Naruto said softly, there is nothing wrong with being gentle or kind. He put his hand on the Akimichi's shoulder. But you need to know that this life is one full of bloodshed and loss. Choji feared that even the Kamikage was going to tell him that he couldn't make it as a ninja, like everyone else. Naruto smiled, not the small, or the dark one he'd already given him, but a bright, genuine one. And having someone like you by my side during these dark-filled times will be the best thing for our village. Choji's eyes widened. The bringer of hope had just, subtly, approved of his gentle nature. Why you mean it? He asked in shock. I never go back on my word, Choji. And you have my word, you will be a fine shinobi one day. The genin did tear up here. No one but his father and mother had believed in him, not even his sensei thought he'd make it to Chunin. Asuma never said it out loud, but Choji could see it in his eyes, they looked like everyone else's. Choji just nodded, keeping his head down so that Naruto couldn't see his tears. It's okay to cry when you're happy. The Uzumaki suddenly said. It's when you cry out of fear when you become incompetent. He pushed the genin's head up. Keep your head up high, Choji. You're a Konoha shinobi, now, be proud of it. Choji kept his head towards the sky, vowing to never lower it again. Naruto smiled and nodded his head. He had started the process, now it was up to the Cho to spread its wings. Naruto started to walk towards the edge of the monument, but before he could do anything, Choji stopped to ask him one last question. Wait, Naruto. The blonde looked at him from over his shoulder. Yeah? The monster, in your story. Who was it? The wild look Naruto gave him caused the Akimichi to gulp. Yours truly. Naruto said before jumping off the giant cliff. Choji's eyes widened both at the statement and at the jump. When he finally gathered enough of his rational thoughts, he sprung to the edge, looking for the legendary shinobi. When he peered over, there wasn't a sign of the Kamikage at all, like he hadn't been there in the first place. Naruto had shunshine to the trees, behind the genin, to see what his reaction would be. When all he saw was burning determination, he smirked. Konoha had just gained a soon-to-be powerful Akimichi. and Naruto had gained another bond. End flashback. Every time he remembered the look in Choji's eyes, he couldn't help but smile. It always made him feel good to help a comrade wake from their slumber. During his recap of his talk with the genin, Naruto had made it to his apartment, right on time to see Hyuga and Hyuga walk in, giving off the emotions of strong sexual desires. The blonde chuckled, and when the door closed behind the horny couple, Naruto made his way for the roof, giving the lovers their alone time. Most brothers would find it gross that their sister was about to have intercourse, but it only made Naruto happy. Not in a creepy, perverted way, it just reminded him that they loved each other, and that she could still be with her loved one. Many people had lost or, like in Naruto's case, couldn't be with the person they wanted to be with, and the fact that Hyuga and Hayate could still hold each other, could still express their love for each other, made him want to protect their bond even more. When they made love, Naruto could feel the strength of their bond, and it never ceased to amaze him how strong it was. They were truly soulmates, meant to be with each other for all eternity, in this life and the next. True love. The roof wasn't comfortable, but he was used to lying on cold, hard surfaces, so it didn't bother him too much. He was on his back, his head resting in his arms that were above him, and he just watched the clouds, enjoying Shikamaru's hobby. It was late afternoon, and Naruto knew that he'd be up on the roof for a while, so when sleep tugged at his mind, he didn't resist it. A nap sounded perfect. Naruto's eyes opened before she even made the jump up to the roof where he was napping. The sky was dark and the air was cooler than when it was before he closed his eyes. When Hyuga landed next to him, he sat up, rubbing the soreness from his neck. "Thank you," she said calmly. Naruto understood what she meant. "For waiting for us to finish." Most people would at least be a little embarrassed in her situation, but after spending years together, she got used to her Atuto knowing everything that went down around her. Even when she had sex with her boyfriend, and understood that it wasn't like he was peeping on them or anything. Her brother was a very mature person, and sex became a popular subject between the two, either Hyuga explaining that just because it was legal for him to have it didn't mean that he should, or her thanking him for allowing her to have it with Hayate even when they were on the job and covering for her. It didn't happen all the time, but when it did, she was extremely grateful. Naruto hummed his response. It wasn't a big deal for either of them. "Are you hungry?" "Hayate's making dinner." The special jonin was an amazing cook, and because of that, made most of the meals they ate. "Yeah." Naruto responded again. Hyuga looked at him with worry in her eyes. "Is something wrong?" she asked, never liking it when he wasn't his usual self. "No, nothing's wrong," Naruto whispered as he made his way to the apartment. "Just a bad dream, is all," he finished as jumped off the roof. Hyuga sighed. Bad dream, i.e. a dream about Terumi Mei. Whenever Naruto dreamt about the Mizukage, it was never a good thing, because it reminded him that they were always so far apart. They were from different countries, different worlds, and so far apart in age. It saddened him that fate had made it as hard for them as it could. Even so, the woman wouldn't leave his thoughts in peace. Hyuga dropped from the roof as well, and entered her shared home. She had at first disapproved of the relationship between the two, but now, after such a long time, he still felt for the woman. That had to mean something. That had to mean that he actually cared for her. She just wondered if the woman still cared for him. As Naruto found a seat at the dinner table, he couldn't help but remember his promise to his first love. This was all for now. Thank you for watching, I hope you liked it and that you will be back for more. Please like, share and subscribe. See ya.